Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at a crazy 14-1 run ahead at leaderboard ELO to climb to 2961 ELO, which at the time of recording, should be within the top 20 ranked battlers in the entire world. The team consists of BRONZONG on the lead, Poliwrath as the save switch, Whiscash as the closer, and it was recommended to me by Breezy. A word of caution, I don't necessarily believe that the success of this team would be repeatable if the team gets tried by others. It really, to me, just feels like there was a day where teams on the leaderboard were super weak to BRONZONG, and this team was just able to punish that. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. In game number 1, we see an absolute nightmare lead BRONZONG into Jellicent, and I'm completely core broken. My plan here is actually to switch into the hard counter of Whiscash, because if I can potentially farm something down in the mid game with Poliwrath, Poliwrath up energy can actually put in a surprising amount of work versus Jellicent. I land the Scald, I get the debuff, that Shadow Ball not going to do a lot, opponent now going to send in Lickitung. Lickitung is going to be hit with the Scald from the Whiscash, it's a 50-50 chance to get the debuff, and we are unsuccessful. I continue to farm up, my opponent is going to fire the energy one turn before I make the Scald. They go for the Body Slam, that is not going to be enough to KO, I'm going for Scald number 2, and my Switch Clock should be up soon. Scald connects, Switch Clock is up, I get the debuff, in comes Poliwrath, and I do get the counter down. I'm hoping my opponent sends in Jellicent here, and they do. This is honestly great for me, because I'm expecting, with the team structured how it is, they have Jellicent, they have a Lickitung, and they probably have another Pokemon in the back weak to counter. But I would prefer this alignment, as since I have an energy lead, I should be in a pretty okay spot to apply a lot of pressure onto the Jellicent with the Poliwrath. I build up to the Scald, bait with the Icy Wind, get the shield, and the benefit of going for the Icy Wind, of course, is going to be that guaranteed attack drop. At -2 attack, I'm going to be able to tank a Shadow Ball pretty comfortably. I can now continue to farm up with the Poliwrath, and I can fire off the Scald. Scald will not be able to get a knockout, but it will get them low. They make it to a move, so I'm going to switch into the Whiscash and catch it. Whiscash was pretty low, so the only use I can really get out of it is catching a move. And then, I think it's time to send in the BRONZONG. I do have a shield advantage. What do they have in the back? It's a Bastiodon! Our switch timers are misaligned, and I'm going to have to take advantage of that fact if I want to win this game. I'm going for the Payback. Payback is going to hit for neutral damage, but XL Bastiodon is extremely bulky. They're going to fire off a Flamethrower, but BRONZONG can take a hit. As we're going to see, BRONZONG able to tank the Flamethrower. My Switch Clock is coming up, but not quite yet. I decide to go for a Psyshock. This is going to do basically no damage, but it will allow me to burn my Switch Clock so I can send in the Poliwrath. I need a small energy lead to be able to outpace the Jellicent once Jellicent's Switch Clock is up. Poliwrath continuing to counter, in comes the Jellicent, and I make it to the Icy Wind. This is going to pick up the knockout. All the opponent has left in the back is the Bastiodon. Bastiodon, those smackdowns are resisted, and despite the nightmare lead, we take the win. Moving into the next match, and we see an amazing lead BRONZONG into Shadow Dragonair. And this is more the type of lead that I'm targeting with the BRONZONG, as the leaderboard meta was very heavy in terms of a lot of fairy leads, a lot of Dragonair, and a whole lot of Poliwrath, so BRONZONG could actually put in a surprising amount of work. My opponent able to make a very nice catch onto their Charjabug. I can bank a little bit of energy on the BRONZONG and send in the Whiscash. Whiscash does extremely well here. My opponent does have a sizable energy advantage, so they are going to be firing off a second X-Scissor. I'm going to look to overfarm with the Whiscash, and just to ensure the knockout, I will go for the Scald. My opponent does have quite a bit of energy stored on that Dragonair, but Dragonair does not throw the energy, so I'm able to fire off this Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is going to grab a shield from the Dragonair. Dragonair looking to get the farm down, and they just will get that farm down. I decide to send in the Poliwrath here. Poliwrath is going to be able to withstand a Body Slam. Body Slam, of course, will add up over time, and I decide I'm going to tank one, I'm going to shield one, so this way I have a bit of energy on BRONZONG and a bit of energy on Poliwrath, since I don't know what they have in the back, and I find out it's Galvantula. I'm firing off this Scald. They have to shield this. Scald hits incredibly hard. I switch into the BRONZONG, and I do not get the attack drop. This should be a Lunge. Lunge is going to connect. BRONZONG farming up to the Payback. This is a debuffed Payback, but the thing about Galvantula, it has absolutely no bulk. Payback gets the knockout. The Dragon Breaths get the KO, but one counter from the Poliwrath, and we take the win. Hopping into the next match, and we see an amazing lead BRONZONG into Wigglytuff. And even better, the Wigglytuff is staying in, so it looks like something in the back is not a big fan of BRONZONG either. BRONZONG continuing to farm and firing off the Psyshock. Decision time for the opponent. They are going to no-shield. I continue to farm. They're going to save switch into Galarian Stunfisk, and I decide to send in the Whiscash. When possible, I do like to kind of get rid of the Whiscash, so to speak, as I find Poliwrath to be significantly more flexible. That's why when I ran this team, I did use Poliwrath as the safe switch, as it feels like even in its bad matchups, Poliwrath can still put up a fight, whereas if you get a Whiscash stuck on something like an Altaria, there's just not anything you can do. The game is basically just over at that point. I go for the Mud Bomb. We see a shield from the Galarian Stunfisk, so very interesting plays by my opponent. I am going to be shielding up as my opponent is going to go for the Earthquake. I'm looking for the full Mud Shot farm down. Opponent is going to send in the Wigglytuff and fire off their energy. They did bank a Rock Slide. Disarming Voice, not going to be able to KO. I decide to stay in and just fire off this Mud Bomb, as Mud Bomb is going to be able to pick up the knockout. This way, I preserve the ability to switch when I do see what they have in the back. My opponent has a Trevenant, and I make a really unfortunate misplay. I meant to switch into the Poliwrath, but I switch into the Bronzong, and now this game might end in a loss for me. Can they get the farm down? They do! They have so much energy on Trev. My only win con is if I send in the Whiscash, go for the Scald, and they throw a move to try and deny the energy, and they do. Because obviously I have no fast move pressure into the Trevenant in the back, but my opponent doesn't know that. So they throw the energy there to try and preserve an ability to not get farmed down, but for me, I just needed them to waste their energy. They're going to make 2 Seed Bombs here, Seed Bomb number 2, as I go for my Icy Wind, but they still do have the Rock Slide loaded, so even though this Icy Wind KOs, it all comes down to, does Poliwrath in the red health survive a Rock Slide? In comes Galarian Stunfisk. Here we go. The moment of truth. Rock Slide from the Stunfisk does not knock out, and we take the 1 HP win. We see a great lead in the next match, Bronzong into Dragonair. Again, this is one of the Pokemon that I'm looking to punish with the Bronzong lead, so this is great for me. They're going to stay in, fire off the Aqua Tail, that's perfectly fine. Bronzong shakes off that damage like it's nothing. I continue to farm, going for the Psyshock. Opponent not switching out, so they are going to have to shield the Dragonair here, or Dragonair is going to get KO'd. I continue to farm with the Bronzong. They've shielded once, so honestly, I don't mind shielding myself. They're going to fire off the Aqua Tail. I continue to farm with the Bronzong, and I am able to get the farm down. Opponent going to send in Carbink. I'm going to save switch into the Poliwrath. Opponent sends in Jellicent, and this looks like an absolute nightmare. But honestly, I wanted to check and see what was the opponent's best response to a water type in the back, as Energy Lead Poliwrath, even against a matchup where it's completely walled like Jellicent, can still output a massive amount of damage. I go for the Icy Wind, of course, because I can get a guaranteed debuff. They go for the Shadow Ball. I shield it up, and I'm going for another Icy Wind. And look at what Poliwrath can do. This Pokemon is absurdly strong. They're going to be firing off a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to connect into the Poliwrath. Poliwrath tanks that extremely comfortably. I continue to farm, and now I can start going for Scalds. Scald is the move I want to throw when I want to get some damage. The Scald is going to connect. I continue to farm up. And they're forced to fire off energy here. Look at that. In a matchup where everything is resisted, Poliwrath gets them deep into the red. They send in the Carbink as I send in the Whiscash. Whiscash gonna fire off the Scald. It's a 50-50 chance to get the debuff. Scald gets the shield and does not get the debuff. But even so, I should be in a winning position here. I should be able to double up on Mud Bombs before they make their second Moonblast. I'm farming up with the Whiscash to the double Mud Bomb. And as I get there, the opponent concedes a match. Moving into the next match, we see an amazing lead Bronzong into Altaria, and the Altaria is staying in. This works out pretty nicely. I continue to farm. Opponent save switches into Lickitung, but I make my first mistake. I'm slow on the switch. They have enough for the Power Whip. I decide to commit a shield because I can get shields back from the Altaria, but they bait me with a Body Slam, and here I'm going to lose count on energy. I thought I could double up before they make the Power Whip, but I cannot. The Power Whip lands, and despite the fact that I hard-won lead and switch, I have tremendously misplayed this mid-game. I do leave with an Icy Wind that I can get a shield back from the Altaria, but my opponent is not going to let that happen. They send in the Lantern to absorb this energy. I have perfect alignment in this game, but I have misplayed it terribly, and my opponent is taking full advantage. They send in the Altaria, so I bring back in the Bronzong. They saved a ton of energy from earlier. The Psyshock will be shielded. The confusions are adding up, and I'm now in a bit of an interesting position. They are going to fire off a move. It is going to be the Sky Attack. I believe I should be able to make it to 2 more Psyshocks. So I am going to be firing off the Psyshock. Psyshock is going to be shielded up. Let's see. Come on, Bronzong. Get there. And I get KO'd as I make the Psyshock. And this is absolutely awful. They easily have enough for a Moonblast here. I commit the shield. They bait with the Sky Attack. And now I just have to hope for a 50-50 Scald debuff. Everything that's gone wrong in this game. and I do get the debuff. Okay, maybe this is enough to bail me out here, but I have not played well enough to win this game. The Moonblast will connect. In comes the Lantern. The question is, am I going to be able to get enough energy here? I'm going to need 3 charge moves to win the game. The Mud Bomb connects. They're going to fire off the Surf. Surf will not be enough to knock out here. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can and play to charge attack priority. I'm overfarming, but I cannot get to the back-to-back moves, and that's going to cost me this game. I'm 1 mud shot short. They send in the Altaria. I get KO'd with the move, and a game that should have been a win, I play terribly, and it turns into a loss. We see a terrible lead in the next match, Bronzong into Alolan Sandslash. I save switch into the Poliwrath, and my opponent is going to respond with Pelipper. So a lost lead, a lost switch, but this is why I do like Poliwrath on the save switch. Poliwrath can at least fight back against something like Pelipper, and they're forced to go for a Hurricane here. So I'm more than happy to let this go and force them to make the right play. Because if they do end up going for Weather Ball bait, then I can actually force a shield from this disadvantageous matchup. And even better, due to the debuffs, they're not going to be able to farm down, and they're forced to go for another Weather Ball. So now I've baited out the Pelipper, and I just have to hope that up a shield, Whiscash can put in work in the endgame. They go for the Weather Ball. Again, I'm not going to be shielding anything here. I know that Alolan Sandslash will absolutely crush the poor Bronzong. Weather Ball number 2 is going to connect. In comes the Sandslash. I send in the Whiscash. My opponent is going to stay in here and fire off a charge move. I decide to commit a shield. They're going for the Ice Punch, and they're not switching out. This means they could potentially be weak in the back. I fire off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is shielded. It's charge attack priority. I'm going to be shielding here. If they're staying in, I need to get rid of this Sandslash. I'm going for the Mud Bomb, and the opponent ends up conceding the match. So whatever they had in back really did not want to see a healthy Whiscash, and we take that game. Alright, hopping to the final set, and what an awful lead. Bronzong into the Trevenant here. This is absolutely terrible. This beats my entire team. They aren't enough for a Shadow Ball, so I will respect it with a shield, and they do full send the Shadow Ball. They continue to farm up. They're going to save switch into a Azumarill, and I'm going to respond with the Whiscash. I'm going to save the energy on the Bronzong for later in case I need it. Going for a Scald here is a bit of a risky play, as Scald is of course going to be resisted, but I'm fishing for that 50% debuff, but luck is not on my side in this game. I mean, I had a Trevenant lead, now I do not get the Scald debuff, so everything that can go wrong is going wrong in this game. But I'm not going to panic. I'm going to stay in here with Whiscash, keep firing off Mud Bomb after Mud Bomb, and just try and get the Azumarill low. After they get the knockout onto the Whiscash, if I can potentially get like a 1 shield farm down with a Poliwrath up energy should be able to put in work against the Trevenant. They fire off energy here. It is going to be the Ice Beam, and I immediately send in the Poliwrath. I'm looking for the 1 shield farm down. I need energy here, because if I get energy, then I can potentially threaten the Trevenant and debuff it. Opponent hard switches the Trevenant, but Trevenant is going to get outpaced. And with this debuff, I can very comfortably tank a Seed Bomb. Icy Wind, they actually no shield. They're saving 2 shields for whatever they have in the back. What is it going to be? It's Talonflame, and this is so bad. I'm going to make a Scald before they get to their fly. I'm going to go for the Icy Wind to get the guaranteed attack drop. Icy Wind is going to be shielded. I continue to farm. The question is, at -1, does a fly knock out here? Opponent fires off the move. They have Brave Bird. That definitely will. I throw 1 Confusion, and I go for the Psyshock. They're debuffed. They are 1 off a move. I'm 1 off a move, but Confusion is 4 turns. Incinerate is 5. I outpace by a singular turn. Down goes the Talonflame. In comes the Azumarill. They are not making a move. And despite their lead Pokemon beating my entire team on paper, we take the win. Hopping into the final match, what an amazing lead. Bronzong into Dragonair. My opponent save switches into the Charjabug, and I get to respond with the Whiscash. So far, so good. I'm in a dominating position to start this match. I'm firing off this Scald, fishing for a debuff, and I do get the debuff. Okay, that is quite nice. They're going to be firing off another X-Scissor. X-Scissor doesn't really threaten even when not debuffed, but when debuffed, oh my goodness. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can, and I've done enough damage that a Mud Bomb should be enough to knock out here. I'm hoping, and it is. Okay, that's quite nice. In comes the Dragonair. I decided to go for the Scald. I was hoping that maybe if I got a debuff, I can make it to another Mud Bomb, but that's definitely not going to be the case. They get the farm down. I'm going to send in the Bronzong. They're firing off energy, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to let this go. And Aqua Tail doesn't do a lot from the Dragonair. In the back, there's trouble. They have a Spark Lantern, and this is really, really bad. I fire off the Psyshock. Opponent is going to commit a shield to the Lantern. They understand that with the Whiscash out of the way, Lantern can be very deadly. I send in the Poliwrath. I'm going to be shielding everything. It was 99.9% guaranteed they were going to bait there, but I still have to respect it for that 0.01%. I'm going to bait with the Icy Wind myself, get the guaranteed attack debuff, and the shield. They're firing off energy. I'm going to be committing the shield here. Opponent does not bait. They go for the Thunderbolt. I continue to farm, and now they have no shield, so I'm going for the harder hitting Scald. Scald is going to connect into the Lantern. They send in the Dragonair, but the Poliwrath refuses to get KO'd, making it to the Icy Wind, knocking out the Dragonair. In comes the Bronzong. One confusion takes down the Lantern, and we take that game. As I mentioned, this was an absolutely insane run. 14-1 runs at Leaderboard ELO should basically never happen. They definitely are going to involve a high degree of lead luck, and in this case, that did end up happening. Bronzong is a Pokemon that's ranked below 300 on PvPoke, but today, it was just crushing the Leaderboard ELO. Oh my goodness. As I mentioned at the start, this is a team that I don't necessarily believe that others should try, as I don't think it would have similar results. It just happens that the Leaderboard ELO was very condensed into a lot of Poliwrath, a lot of Fairies, a lot of Dragonair, and fortunately for me, Bronzong was just absolutely crushing it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.